Hello, everybody. Welcome to the KREIA Homeownership Workshop. I'm Hampton Scurlock. I'll be the MC for the night. John Jones will be helping run things as well, and Lauren Willoughby. We've got a great cast of KREIA members kind of share their experience with real estate investing, how they got started, the best investments they made, how to get, things they would do, things they wouldn't do, just kind of so they can share their experiences with you. So one thing that our parliamentarian wanted me to read off was the legal disclaimer, which I'm going to read from my phone here and kind of do the best that I can. It's kind of small print. So it says, this presentation oh goodness, this is very small. There we are. Presentations on this update, representations made by all speakers, vendors, and moderators are presented to you for educational purposes only. All speakers, including attorneys, are speaking in a general educational capacity and not providing legal advice. The speakers and Kentuckiana Real Estate Investor Association, KREIA, strongly recommend seeking the advice of your own attorney, CPA, or other applicable professional before undertaking any of the advice or concepts discussed in this updates or this presentation. The opinions, materials, content, and content in this program are solely those of the speaker and speaker's company and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of KREIA or any of its staff, board members, or sponsors. So we got that fun legalese out of the way. We probably can get down to business here. For those of you that aren't aware, KREIA is a non-real estate educational group started in the 1970s. Wonderful organization. Most of you here are members. We have made this open to the public and we will be recording this call. So if you need to join, if you have questions about KREIA, you can go to KREIA.com, KREIA.com to join. It's investors of all levels, whether you're getting started, you've been in it for many, many years, and you're a seasoned veteran like some of the presenters we're going to have tonight. Great organization. They've got lots of events, lots of ways to learn, lots of networking opportunities. They've been a little limited because of the COVID situation. So I apologize that we couldn't meet in person like was planned, but we're doing the best with what we've got. And hopefully this will be a good, I'm sure we'll have great call, great information to share with everybody. And we'll try to pick up the live workshops maybe in 2021 or when things in the COVID, the ban or the gathering restriction gets lifted in our great state. So we're all great Commonwealth. Some of the upcoming events for KREIA and benefits of membership. There are numerous benefits to membership, from discounts on paint, discounts, rebates on certain products, Home Depot rebates, discounts on IRA accounts with Equity Trust Company. I know I've gotten a lot of money saving opportunities through my membership at KREIA. They do a learning on the site program that actually Kisha Lindsay and has hosted before, and you get to see a property from a KREIA member that's been renovated, and you get to learn about how they found it, what the price was, what they spent to fix it up, what their expected profit is, things they did and why, things they wouldn't do again, contractors they used, problems they had, things they learned from it, and you get to learn from someone else's experience. So that is free for KREIA members, and heck, we even buy you lunch when you attend those. We also do happy hours, game nights. Some of these are a little limited now, so you have to check the KREIA website for what's going on and the dates. Also, this will be recorded, so refer to the website for the upcoming events from month to month. We'll also do a lunch and learn program once a month that one of our members, Ed Gibson, has hosted for quite a while now. And the main meeting for KREIA, we host a different topic about every month, at least 10 main meetings a year. And it's the fourth Thursday of every month until we get into November, December, then that's the holiday times. But again, the fourth Thursday of every month is the main meeting. We do have a main meeting coming up January 28th, and then again, another main meeting in February. And we've started doing a KREIA retreat, which is a lot of fun. Last year was an all-day event. This year, we're trying to make it 2 days if we can actually gather in person, and that'll be the last weekend in February out at Taylorsville Lake. There's some lake houses out there, and we've got a couple authors, nationally known authors lined up, some great speakers on various topics, and we're having to see if the gathering ban gets lifted, we can do that in person. It's going to be a virtual event or get shelved until next year. So we'll keep everybody posted on that. for those of you who don't know me, my name's Hampton Scurlock. I'm a KREIA board member, investor, and just love KREIA, kind of live, eat, and breathe real estate, have a passion for it. And you're in for a treat tonight with the that we have. I think first up and is George Foree. George, a friend. He's a longtime board member. Won't tell you how old he is, but I don't know if George will tell you either. But he's been buying property since 1975. George, if you're on, I'll probably just can't say enough good things about George. He's involved in a lot of charities as well, and very active, very visible, in downtown Louisville, and a lot of experience that he brings to the table. So, George, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about yourself, we're going to go by and each speaker kind of introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of cover some questions and tell your story, and then we'll get the questions answered from the crowd after all the speakers have had their few minutes to talk.
Oh, okay. Hey, do you want me to just give a bio, or do you want me to go into what I'm going to say?
Bio and maybe up to 5 minutes is kind of your story. Then we'll come back to what all you're going to say and all the great advice you can give.
Okay. I'm from Henry County. I was raised by my grandfather, who was a dairy farmer, so we milk cows 7 days a week. I went to the Army, and I was a military police in the Army. I came out of the Army, and I went to GE for the last 30 years. And while I was at GE, I started to finding houses for a group of attorneys and real estate agents. I just bird dog for them, find deals for them. And then I watched them and seen what they made. And that's how I got started. Next.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah. And then George, we'll get back to you kind of what you want to talk about and give you a few more minutes on everything. And Monica Wright says, hello, cousin George. So I guess you got some family in the house tonight, George.
All right.
Marcus Britton is with Red Door Investments, and he's also very active in the investment community. And he's got a lot of goals. Yeah, they're out looking for properties and deals right now, and single family, multi-family, a lot of buy and holds. And Marcus, great wealth of knowledge. We've gotten to hang out some of the happy hours, and I've heard him tell some good stories and good advice to some of the newer investors out there. But Marcus, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes. My name is Marcus. Can you hear me, Will?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Marcus Britton. I've been real estate investing since 2006. I was in the Nashville market from 90 to 2000. Was going a different direction as far as businesses. Moved here, did debt collections for law firms, and did a lot of credit repair for other people, and got into real estate initially with my brother. He moved back to Tennessee, which is where we're from. And I've been a buy and hold guy since then, done a few flips, partnered with a builder locally. Most of our rentals are Section 8, so we're looking to acquire more properties as we speak. And that's about it.
I may have a question for you for Section 8 later that some of the crowd of the group may want to know about. This next dynamic duo, I'm not sure which slide is going to come up first, but is Chiquita and Kisha Lindsay, and they're not sisters. They're actually mother and daughter, and they're both a lot of fun and a lot of experience in real estate investing. And Kisha and I actually go way back to grade school, so a lot of good stories there. But she's done a lot of great things, great property renovations and flips in Louisville and different areas. And one of the last programs, she did one of our lots, or the Learning on the Site program in the west end of Louisville. She had her own program out there, and people were just blown away. They did a great job renovating. I think they got multiple offers or sold the property above asking very quickly. So she's definitely got a keen eye for design and great taste. But Kisha, are you there? And we'll let you talk, and then introduce your mom right afterwards.
Okay, so you all can see me. Okay, I see everybody saying they can see me. Well, hello again. Just a little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I got into real estate investing back in 2000 when I bought my first primary residence, and I actually got into real estate investment by accident, because it was a property that I bought, lived in for a couple of years, wanted to sell it, couldn't sell it for what I wanted, and ended up renting it out. And I actually when I rented it out and I learned that I can pay my mortgage and still have $300 extra on top of that to do whatever I wanted to do. That's what I actually got my start into real estate investing. And I did that. I had a very good tenant at the time who stayed there till he passed, which was a good 10 years. So that kind of inspired me to say, well, what is this about? I actually was employed at Ford Motor Company where I did 10 years and took the buyout. And from there, I took the buyout in 2007. And I went and got my license. So I've been a licensed realtor since 2007. And that's where I actually started getting into, buying more properties. I used the money that we used that I got from the buyout to just start and just bought up everything that I could. And at the time we were buying in the West End in Portland where it was so cheap to buy. And of course, when you buy them pretty cheap, you got to do a lot to them as far as putting the rehab. But that didn't matter because I was able to own properties, for a cheaper price instead of, and that was, what I was comfortable with. I know a lot of people, have different areas that they like. I'm partial to the, West End. I grew up there, right at, down in deep 42nd and River Park. So I wanted to be on this panel because I know there's a lot of people that come to me. I have inboxes that they want to buy their first property. They don't know where to start. So I'm hopefully that I can help somebody, today. If, I'm willing to help, I'm willing to, hold their hand and walk them through the process. And then I want to introduce my mother, Chiquita Lindsay. We're, like Hampton said, we're kind of like a dynamic duo. We have been investing together probably about 15 years ago. We did our first flip together and we didn't have a thing about flipping at that time. We had a little knowledge with, rental property. And the outcome was we actually made some money, but we lost, we cut our profit down probably almost by 70%. And I guess it's always good that we didn't break even and we went in the negative. We actually made a little money. And that was, I don't know what made us just go ahead first, but I guess that was get the story, how we've been able to do it, for so long now. So I like to bring in my mother, Chiquita Lindsay.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I remember that first flip, and the gentleman that bought it came with a shopping bag full of money and bought it. And we learned a lot of stuff. And of course, we would not tell anybody else to go jump head first in the flip without the wisdom and the knowledge to do so. And so a little bit about me is I bought my first 2 properties in 2008. When people were running out, I ran in. And being a woman, we always take care of everybody else first. And so I bought these 2 properties because I knew my husband was going to be retiring before me, and I wanted to supplement his income instead of realizing that real estate was going to save me. So I went on to work a job for over 37 years. Yes, 37 years I worked a hospital job. And about in the 35th year, when they start sending me the letter saying, oh, you're going to get X amount of money to retire, I was like, oh no, I'm going to retire broke. I'm not going to be able to survive on what they're going to give me. Now, you would say that if I work somewhere 37 years, I should be able to retire with a pension. This job, there was no 30 and out. It was age, and I was still too young to retire. And even if I stayed there over 40 years, and picked up social insecurity of a little bit of pension, I was still going to live in poverty in retirement. So I quit. I had to get out. The longer I stayed, the broker I was going to be. So I had to look down and say, now, what do I have? What's going to save me? And I couldn't figure out at first because real estate was so easy. So then I realized that real estate was going to save me. So I quit. And in the meantime, I created a huge portfolio in a year and a half after I left. I've never looked back since. I'm unemployable to anybody else's job. So my goal now and my mission is to make sure every woman owns real estate and owns property so that they can retire whenever they want to, retire early, never have to worry about money or running out of money. And so basically that's it. I'm a caretaker, my 88-year-old mother. And I'm not a real estate agent, so I don't have a real estate license. And of course I have an agent in the family, which is Kisha. But of course I'm a flipper and a wholesaler, and I love rental properties and I love Section 8. That's my story.
Sorry, I need to unmute there. All right, another someone who's participating or providing Section 8 in housing there. And last but certainly not least, Donnie Adkins kind of rounds out our experts, panel here. And some of you had seen, Donnie speak, and he's a dynamo, and I know he got great reviews. A lot of people really enjoyed his Zoom call. One of our members, Rob Bergeron, our board members, is doing some Zoom calls on Fridays, and I think they're recorded. You can view and kind of hear a little more about Donnie's story if you'd like. But Donnie, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about yourself and your story?
Sure. Hey everyone, I'm Donnie Adkins, born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. I moved away for a little while. I lived in Indianapolis for several years, and we got my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time and fiance. We were moving from Indianapolis to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina for a little while. And so we had a house in Indianapolis, and I didn't know anything about real estate or being a real estate investor. So we ended up renting the house out, and the person who we leased the house to was a friend of a friend. We were paying half the rent. That person was paying half the rent sometimes. So when we left Raleigh, Durham, we decided to, instead of going back to Indianapolis, to come to my hometown, Louisville, Kentucky. And the entire year, I was super frustrated. I was losing sleep, trying to figure out, one, how can I get this person out of my house who is a friend of a friend, and how is that going to go over? And one day I just Googled how to be a real estate investor. I didn't know anything about KREIA. I didn't know any real estate investors. All I knew was we had a house up there in Indianapolis that I was making $0 on. So as I became more and more familiar with real estate, I got a little bit more savvier. We kicked that person out, got someone in that house who that house we still own today, and we're making a somewhat of a cash flow on that house. It's in a really good neighborhood. And I talked to my wife one time. I was working a corporate job at the time, and some folks have heard this story, but I talked to my wife and I asked my wife, I said, could we afford another car? And I knew the answer to that. And I said, more specifically, can we afford a Kia? And a Kia was like 20, 30 grand at the time. And she said, yeah, but why do you want to buy a Kia? I said, I don't. If we can afford a Kia, and if we can afford to pay like a $600 payment towards that Kia per month, maybe we could afford a $20,000 to $30,000 house, and we can afford to get that type of payment per month. And so still super novice, we bought our first house, and this is the house that we still own today that's cash flowing a little bit over $600 a month. We bought that house for $25,000 back in 2015. We put a couple grand into it to renovate it, and we had it on Section 8. We've thus paid that house off, and even though it's cash flowing a little bit more than $600, but just kind of some set asides, et cetera, because it's an older house, that house has been really successful for us. So we've taken that knowledge. I primarily buy in West Louisville, but over the last couple of years, we've branched out to South Louisville, and now our bread and butter is houses in Shively area. Primarily, like I said, buy and hold guy, rental real estate, Section 8, love Section 8 sometimes when they're not getting on my nerves. But back in 2019, towards the end of 2019, I went through Frank Miller's Believe Investment course. I knew nothing about flipping houses, didn't even know if I really wanted to flip houses. But that was pretty much that solidified the fact that I had already quit my job like a year or so earlier because of our rental income. So for 2020, we sold our first house, I believe at the beginning of March in 2020. And we've sold 6 houses thus far this year. I don't plan on selling any more houses this year, but I like to throw this number out. The last house that we had was a lots house also. that we got to show people around. And I bought that house from a very esteemed person in KREIA. But we got to walk around that house, and I showed everyone the updates on what we did to that house. And it was in West Louisville. It was off of a street called Austin, right off of Cypress in West Louisville. Initially, I was not going to flip this house. It was going to be a rental house for us because we got it at a really great price. But because of the power of Facebook and throwing some pictures out there every so often, we ended up getting the house under contract and ended up closing on the house and making like $48,000. And so I was like, all right. And I kind of joke with this because, like I said, it was going to be a rental house. The house didn't even have a dishwasher. It was literally a rental house. It was a very nice rental house, but nonetheless a rental house. And I'm pretty proud of that house. We did the rental at the time, similar to the way we would have did one of our flips because of the type of because of the amount of money that we were into it. So it was a really nice property. So I'm sold on real estate, and like Mrs. Lindsay talked about, I don't think I'll ever go back to a 9-to-5. I just don't see that happening, and especially at this point. Even I think if you can survive COVID as an entrepreneur, I don't think there's nothing else that you couldn't survive as an entrepreneur. If you can survive during these super lean times as an entrepreneur. So look forward to answering questions and talking about more of my experience.
All right, great. Thank you so much, panel. I know, gosh, so many things people probably want to talk about. I know, George, I think you had something prepared. We'll kind of jump around a bit, give everybody a chance to talk, maybe, share a few stories, some of their experiences, maybe how they would encourage others to get started, or what their best investment was, things they've learned, any wisdom they can impart on the group. And then we'll kind of hear from everybody and then go back to taking questions from the crowd and a few questions that have been sent to me directly. So George, take it away there.
Okay, I just want to say if you're going to get started, don't quit your day job. Wait till you get enough income to replace that job. But myself, I like to find an area town that I really want to buy in, that I feel comfortable going through looking for houses in. And when you look in an area, you're going to have the better the area, the more money you're going to make. The good of the area, you're going to get good appreciation. So you have to decide which one do you want. But don't go into a real bad area. But if you want good income, you may have to stay in the lower areas instead of buying a $400,000 house where you're just going to get good appreciation. And the main thing is, when you go into an area, if you're really going to make money, the first thing is the hardest thing, is you got to know the price. And that's a hard thing to do if you're not an agent or somebody who's already been in the real estate business. Now, myself, I use the Sunday paper. I look in there every Sunday morning before I go to church. I'll look in the Sunday's paper, see who bought what house in what area. And then I go to commissioner sale, whether I buy anything or not, I go. Because all the people there are the investors who's buying houses. They know what they're paying for in that area, and they know about what a good price it is to pay. I also use a lot of real estate agents. They call me and give me advice, and they tell me about what prices are and as things change, something like that. But that is the hardest part, is getting together on a price. You make your money when you buy the house. So you got to buy right, or if you pay too high, you won't make as much. If you pay low, you're going to make a lot. And then a lot of people are flipping houses, which is very good. I personally like to flip a house. I like to buy a house with a dead dog, sell it with a dead dog. Now, some people want to fix houses up. That's cool. It's whatever you want to do. But the main thing is getting the price. And a lot of people like rehabbing, and they do a good job. And when you rehab a house, you really make good money, because people will pay you more and your profit value will go up. Then some people are like me. I have a bunch of rentals, and I like my rentals to an extent. But the main thing about rentals, what it does for me, is to give us passive income. That's really income without working. And if you can get 4 or 5 houses, say 5 houses at $1,000 a month, that's $5,000 a month income. And that is really good income, because that's almost a $75,000 a year job. So you can get good passive income like that. But on the rehab right now, in the areas that I'm in, most of the houses sell for FHA and VA. And on the rehab, you got to keep them for 90 days before you can write a contract. And that kind of put a slump on the rehab, but you make the most money. And then you got to find a bank. If you're going to buy some property that needs work, you have to go to a small bank. If it looks good and already been rehabbed, you can go to a big bank. And a lot of new investors, they'll go to a big bank and get pre-qualified, and they got an 800 credit score, which is good. But that bank won't finance the property in the condition the property's in. So that brings about a problem when you're trying to buy houses where you're going to make money off of. If you're going to live in, that's a different story. But you got to get a bank that's going to let you buy something with that needs work. And then the main thing about the real estate that really is good for the investors is you can buy houses and have so much leverage. You know, you can buy a $70,000 house worth $100,000, and that's leverage. And that's how you can really make your money when you don't have but a little amount of money. And leverage is one of the biggest things that we can get in any kind of business that we're going into. Then me personally, I like a team. I have everybody. I got a real estate agent, lawyer, accountant, a banker. Everybody knows me. And when I want something done, they usually tell me when and where I can't do it, because I have a team. They work with me. I work with them every day. And this is what we do every day. And they know how I like things set up. So it makes it a lot easier. When I call my attorney, he knows how to write it up. He knows about my closing, my title insurance. He knows about everything. And then my thing is, I really like networking with people. I belong to 5 or 6 nonprofits. I'm on the board. I like to do everything I can with real estate, especially in the areas that I'm in. I want to know everything about real estate in that area. And I do a lot of networking, meeting people. I talk to people, try to give classes to people, whatever I can do to network. And one of the biggest things that I learned lately is OPT, use other people's time. And that's one thing that I had a hard time learning. I went to school and got a heat and air conditioning degree. I got all kind of classes. And then I found out that when they taught me something, they didn't want me to do no more work. I started using other people to do the work for me instead of working myself. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned. And one of the biggest mistakes I made was not buying houses in a IRA. A Roth IRA. That's one of the biggest mistakes I made. And if I was a younger person, I would buy as many houses as I could and put into my Roth IRA for retirement. That's all. You can ask me any questions. And Donnie, that was my house on. I was telling you, you can tell everybody. That's good.
I think I'm unmuted now. All right. So thanks, George. Yeah, you got some good information there. Kind of told us about the biggest, you said, regret or is not buying properties in a Roth IRA. Those are wonderful. And a couple of people were actually talking about it before the call started. But any other speakers want to tell about their, best experience, biggest regret, give some words of advice to the KREIA group here?
Yeah, I'll go, Hampton. I think one of my biggest regrets, and I don't know if it's a regret as of more of a sore spot in my business, is similar to what George says. Like, I have a team, but I don't always consistently keep the same team. So for instance, like, I'll have a painter, but I like to have 3 or 4 painters, because especially this year, it's from the beginning of the year until we've died down within the last month or so. Like, I could not have had one painter paint all of the houses, all of the flips, everything that we were doing with our business. So a lot of times when you get into this business, and I guess unfortunately or fortunately, a lot of these folks it's a really close-knit community. So if you find someone that you really, really like, and that he or she is a painter, I would advise people to just keep them on the team and go slower. So one of my regrets is just feeling like I had to go too fast. And so not only with painters, the same can be said with roofers, et cetera, electricians, plumbers, et cetera. But now I think it's to the point where if you have these people on your team, to try to figure out how to keep them on the team and keep them happy. So if you had a plumber who you know you've worked with and you know you have had a good rapport with, and who he or she is going to give you a great price on something, don't try to go out and find 2 or 3 other plumbers. And I think that's been sort of a sore spot in my business. Similar to what George said, because I listen to a lot of what George says, is to find a place, find a location that you can go in and figure out everything about that location. I remember asking Mr. George a question one time about a specific zip code, and I had all this paperwork and I was trying to figure stuff out on my phone, and he just spit it out on top of his head. The same information I had, electronically, he knew intently. So just to learn every single thing about the area where you're investing in is very, very important. And so that way you don't miss a deal, or while someone else is thinking about it, someone else is making a deal out of it. So I think that's very, very important. We primarily, as of today, a lot of our focus is in the historic Russell neighborhood. I'm not going to turn down a house that might happen to be in Shively, because depending on how much equity is in the house. But the historic Russell neighborhood right now, for me today, if something comes out of that neighborhood and it's not overpriced, then I am going to look very seriously at purchasing that piece of property. So I would say that's kind of where we are at this point.
All right, and Marcus, or
Yes,
actually,
sir. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, how you guys doing? One of the biggest mistakes I think that settled with me is waiting so long after being in real estate to join the likes of KREIAs and getting involved with the networking aspect of it, and asking for help. I left corporate America. It'll be 2 years in February, and if it wasn't for my wife being able to back me, then it would have been a little bit tougher. But going out into the streets and going and networking with other like-minded individuals, going to everything that I could. The next gen has really been helpful. I've funneled a lot of people through it. KREIA has been a great tool for me, and I didn't tap into these things until I left corporate America. So being a person who bought 4 properties on his first day back in 2006, first day, same closing, same day, all at one time, but I had an investor then helping me make that a creative thing, and I still have these properties today. So that's a great thing, and I've been, still networking. Still, after taking Frank Miller's class, me and Donnie took it together, and I've become a local mentor myself, mentoring about 15 other people, and putting a lot of those guys together as far as what they bring to the table. If you're going to be in real estate, you need at least one of a few things. It's going to be credit, liquidity, experience, and then a mentor. And like Donnie said, you got to have 2 or 3 of everything. 2 or 3 banks, 2 or 3 realtors, 2 or 3 attorneys, 2 or 3 CPAs, just to help build your team and make it solid. And like I said, I just can't stress enough how much, the guys within the organization has helped me. The Chris McCarty's, I've been able to call him and he spent an hour on the phone with me and my team. Mike Fallett, Hampton, you guys have been great. Jordan and Saul have really helped me funnel a lot of people through those guys for hard money and getting people set up. So yeah, my biggest mistake was not purchasing more properties back in 2006. One of my first BRRRRs, I think we bought it for like $25,000. Left the closing table with a check for like $24 to fix it up, and it just appraised earlier this year for over $130. And we refied that out, and that was our first BRRRR we've done, and that was just this year. So it's been a great ride. It's like the other 2 speakers that spoke, well, everybody that spoke, having a W-2 job will not be for me in the foreseeable future. or until I come back to life again, reincarnated as something else. So, yeah.
Common themes though. A few of us are unemployable, or real estate has made it where we don't want to go to work for someone else, or can't go back, so they couldn't pay us enough to go back to work for somebody else. So, Kisha and Chiquita there, what additional stories or experiences have you guys found, or what's been your kind of best investment you guys have ever made, out of curiosity?
Well, I think let's go with my mistake. I wish I had have woke up earlier. I'm like old school, get a job, work 30 years and retire. And that's what I believed for years. And when I resigned from my job, they said, we thought you would have been gone a long time ago. Everybody else sees your greatness. But when you talk about real estate, if they're not on your level, people don't understand. And it's different with women. You guys, y'all know what you want. You're aggressive. With women, you're looking for perfection. Not me, but other women, because I mentor women. My mission is for women. And so they want to ask the girlfriend, should I do this? Should I do that? Let me think on it. Let me wait till tomorrow. They don't have the courage or the confidence. And so that's what I bring to the table. But I had to free myself first. I know there was a reason why God had me in that job for so long and, and kept me there. But once I was awake, I was like, no. And so the first 7 months I walked out of there, I already had $250,000 in real estate. I never would have had it if I had never left the job, but I wish I had woke up sooner. So what I'm finding out is never too late with real estate, no matter what your age is, to create wealth. Another mistake is, one time Hampton called me and said, I got this little house over here in Portland. Do you want to come over here and see it? It's $6,500. I went to look and I said, oh, I don't know. We went to Next Gen. He kicked me on the table. You want that house? I was like, no, go ahead. Well, he turned around and did a owner finance for $59,000. And I said, oh, I lost $59,000 today. Darn it. And I don't know if you remember, Hampton, but that's a story I tell my mentees because I wanted to sleep on it. When you know there's a good deal, you can't sleep on it. You got to go get it, and especially now with the way properties are now. And so that was one of my biggest mistakes. But everything has worked out okay now. And a question Alexis asked me is, how did I scale my real estate business, when leaving my 9 to 5? I would never suggest anybody to leave their job without a plan. Use your job to finance your business and then walk away. Have a strategy before you walk away from that business, that job, because you don't ever want to go back. And like Marcus says, you need a mentor. I learn something from everybody. I don't profess to know everything. You can learn something from everybody in this business.
That is good advice. You never know where you're going to pick up that wisdom or that little nugget you can use. And maybe it's somebody that doesn't even invest in real estate. Sometimes other businesses, other professionals can share wisdom you can use in your real estate business, or just talking to people in general.
Exactly.
And what about you, Kisha?
I think mine was leaving the 9 to 5 too. I think I should have left it sooner than I did, but at the time I was used to that safety net. And, at Ford, back in the day when I got hired in, it was 97, 98. It was like a dream job to everybody. I was probably only out of high school 2 years, and, making $28, $29 an hour was a blessing. Had great benefits. I was paid weekly, that all the other perks that came with it. Once I decided to take that buyout, looking back on it, I should have probably been out, because it was greater later for me. It enabled me to, do what I wanted to do on my time. When I was at Ford, I had to press a button, ask to go to the bathroom. If I missed the truck, I had, all the big wigs as we called them, on your back. What's wrong? Turn, we was doing 700, 800 trucks a night, walking out of there, working 6-7 days a week, but it was great money. But looking back on it, I just wish I probably would have, had wise counsel around me at the time and say, you can do this. Real estate is where it's at. And, like everybody has said, don't leave without a plan, because I knew what I was going to do. When I offered to buy out, that first time I didn't go, the second time I was out of there. I actually went to see if I can get my date moved up, that I could move out, because I knew what I was going to do with my buyout that was in invest real estate. The ground rent bought up everything I could at the time. So I think that would be what I would do different if I could have done, if I could redo it.
That is a question I'm asked a lot. I'm sure people on here may want to, if you could do it differently, how would you do it, or how would you encourage people to get started? People probably heard my story before, but what advice would you have out there for anyone that's thinking of getting into investing, or getting their children or grandchildren into investing? Do you think what's the best or easiest way to get started?
If you're asking, I would first find a mentor and see if it's something you really want to do. If you have a gut for it, it's not the easiest thing, because if it was, everybody would be doing it. So, get some knowledge. A lot of times they say the best education is go ahead and buy your first property. I wouldn't suggest doing that just yet until you have someone else on your team who can help carry the water. So if you can get 20% of a profit of a deal and somebody else is getting 80, well, that's 20% of something. So find a mentor, be the first thing I would do, and network with like-minded individuals, and definitely speak with people and surround yourself with people that is doing it. And, someone that talks real estate, so that would be my suggestion. Get those type of things lined up. Get your banks and your finances lined up for your back end financing if you're looking to hold on to rentals, and get a game plan.
I would second everything Marcus said. Like you said, get a property, but get the wisdom. And don't tell everybody what you're doing at first, because they're not going to understand you and they're going to talk you out of it. But get that property. I like the low cost properties with the high cash value. I don't normally go for equity. Equity can go up and down. I want to know what I'm going to get every month. What is your plan? And in women's situation, a lot of times they don't figure out they don't have any money. It's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And sometimes, like you said, get the first property and burr it. But just don't burr everything, so you can sleep at night. And so there's just a lot of strategies. And we know as investors, everybody here probably invests the same, but a little different. But, what's going to be right for you and your plan, that's the way you got to go.
I think like joining KREIA and other organizations where you can listen to people and they can tell you about their mistakes and how they got started. Sometimes it may be good to have a partner, but the main thing is learn how to buy houses. Maybe you don't want to buy them in your personal name, and maybe you want to learn what an LLC and a land trust is, and all different ways that people are buying houses when you sit down and talk to them.
And kind of along that same theme there, George, that we've had a couple people in the chat box mention, IRAs and real estate investing and the tax benefits. And you mentioned it earlier, but you or any of the other speakers here, can you elaborate on the benefits of buying a property in an IRA, or how that works?
Well, I don't know too much about it, but I do know that the taxes are deferred. And like I had some houses made 15, 20 years ago, they worth double what I paid for them. Now I got to pay taxes on them. If I had them in my IRA, I wouldn't have to pay the taxes. In my Roth IRA, a regular IRA and a Roth is different. So you need to learn. A Roth is better than a regular IRA, because all that appreciation that I've got, now I got to pay taxes on it. If it's in a Roth, I don't think I have to pay the taxes on the profit.
Any other?
I don't. I have not. I just crossed that bridge just recently after hearing about self-directed IRAs. Maybe it was with you guys, or someone. I did speak with a couple of hard money lenders. I think Chris McCarty's been doing it for a long time, and he would, spent some time with us explaining some things that what he's done in the past has been successful with him. And there's another investor in town that he referred me to him. So I did speak with him. I got with the company now. So we've converted funds to start doing just that as we speak.
Yeah, in Hampton, I don't mind saying that's something I didn't realize until I was older. And so, the younger you are, the better off you are with that Roth. And there's some folks in the club who started young, who've built some crazy portfolios in their Roth. And the beauty of it is when you get to be my age, you can start taking the money out and you're not taxed. It's a beautiful thing. It's a great way to shelter yourself from taxes. So I encourage everyone, once they've started, to start looking into that. That's something really, once you get going, you'll want to start considering it. But going back to what everyone else has been encouraging is get started, and I love what Marcus has been sharing, and that is find somebody here, and there's something about good people working together and like-minded people wanting to help one another, and everyone here likes helping anybody that wants to try and make it on their own. So I think that's been some great advice, but don't wait, get started.
I would say I don't do the Roth IRA.
Yes, yeah, just get started.
Yeah, as of right now, but we are looking into doing that in the future. But I would go back to say something that Mrs. Lindsay said, as far as don't tell everybody what you're doing. More specifically, if you work a job, the last thing I would be doing on my job right now is telling people that you are in real estate, or telling people what you're flipping, or telling people that you're making extra money outside. I was in corporate America making very good money. And even when I left corporate America, it wasn't super ceremoniously, because I think my higher ups knew that with my salary and my perceived real estate holdings, that I made more than them. And I think they kind of knew that. And it's because I think sometimes I was so excited about real estate, and if somebody asked, I would tell them, I wouldn't. But you have to be a little bit more shrewd, especially if you're still in the workplace, because people are not going to like that. I know a real estate agent who is unfortunately not a part of KREIA yet, but she was just fired from her job last week. I won't say where she works at, but they told her, her being a real estate agent and her job was a conflict of interest, and they wanted her to take her Facebook page down. And she did not take the Facebook page down. And I think they called her in the office Thursday or Friday of last week and asked again. She said she hadn't taken it down. She was, still thinking about what her options were, and they fired her on the spot. Now, she wasn't technically as concerned. She has children and everything, but I think the real estate, as far as being a realtor, she's doing very well for herself. But that just kind of goes back to, she's talking about this at work, and her job found a way to get her out of there. So I think that's very important. Don't always talk about what you got going on outside of work at work.
Thank you, Donnie, for clearing that up. That's exactly what I meant. Thank you.
And I'd like to add one more thing, if I may. I often suggest Bigger Pockets as a podcast to listen to, that help me kind of shape, the direction and how I talk to people and those type of deals. I mean, if you're thinking about this at all, you got to spend some time digging in. And Bigger Pockets podcast has been a wealth of knowledge and success stories that will just get the juices flowing and, put you on a path to doing something that's going to be positive. So it's another thing. And then another big mistake, from the people that I've talked to in the past few years, I've heard the horror stories about these guys spending their hard-earned money going to these yahoos that travels with these mentoring circuses shows, and some kind of way they trick you out of $30,000 and you don't have anything but a bunch of credit card debt. So before you spend your top dollar trying to learn something that you can get really, really inexpensively through networking, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. So that's one of the biggest things that I've taken, and just keep trying to share it with other people. I've had people call me, tell me they just spent $30,000 last year, and don't have their first property, and they can't get in contact with the coaches that they've hired. So that to me is unheard of. It's, for the money you could spend taking someone out to lunch and picking their brains would do a lot more for you than hiring these yahoos and losing all of your wealth.
All right. We had a few questions over there from the chat box. And I know one of them that contacted me. A couple of you mentioned Section 8 rentals. What would you give some advice to the group, do's and don'ts, the good experience you've had with that or the bad? And I know this varies from market to market, and Indiana is different from Kentucky, and who knows what other states may be watching this podcast or this broadcast. But let's just talk about Kentucky or Indiana, wherever you're dealing with. What's your experience with Section 8 been like?
Mine has been a very positive experience, and one thing that I learned, I hired a property management company, and they were terrible. After 3 months, I realized that we were way more efficient because we actually managed my brother-in-law's properties. But one thing that I did pick up from the property management company was asking fair market value rents on your rental properties. And I tell this to anyone that will listen. I mean, if you know that your 3-bedroom is worth $11.98 per Section 8 guidelines or federal government guidelines, why not ask for $11.98? Why would you immediately just come up with a number for $7.50 where you're killing yourself doing that, or you're not maximizing your profits or profit earning potential by doing that? And a lot of people just do not do it. For a 1-bedroom, I think it's $688 a month. So if you are in a situation where you are renting out Section 8, you would do yourself a favor by asking for fair market rents. The worst thing is going to happen is that they're going to tell you what they can pay. It's going to be a lot more than what you were going to charge them in the first place. So if they don't take the $688 for a 1-bedroom, after expenses, after electrical, or whatever they're putting in utilities, then it may be $600 a month. Well, a lot of these 1-bedrooms are rented out for $400 or $450. Now that's if you are renting out to a Section 8 person.
You're right, Marcus. I like Section 8 too, because if you can say $11.98, and then when they do market value, they'll say, well, I'll give you $11.50. Will you take it? And you just say yes. But if you start off with $9.50, they're not going to come back and say, well, we would have given you $11.50. So I like that. And every property that I look at it through Section 8 eyes before I buy it. Because one of my fears is being sued. And if I know I'm going with all the rules and regulations, the code violations, I'm safe. I'm making sure every plug is grounded. I'm making sure every window is 44 inches off the floor. If it's not, how much is it going to cost for me to put that window in? So every property I look at, I'm looking at through Section 8. And really, I don't want a cash payer. Too many things happen. With COVID, all of my properties, they pay their rent. I'm a baby boomer. I want low stress. It's not going to stop me from getting stressed. But if I can control it, I want to control it. My properties are my retirement money, and I can't play with it. And you'll have 1 year that, and before when I get that letter that says, hey, we're going to inspect your property on this date, I got a checklist. I'm calling the tenant. Hey, do you have bulbs in every light? Is there anything you want to tell me about? Is there grease off the stove? Everything. And then my husband's going to walk in there before then. He's going to check sure they hate it if you close the door and the door open. I'll know every little bitty thing. And I love my inspectors. I'm sweet to them. I talk to them. I call them and say, well, what is it that you want done on so-and-so? Would you meet me there? Because I want to make sure I got it exactly like you want it. They carry guns. I don't play with them. They carry guns. And so I don't have a problem with Section 8. You'll get a house that passed the first year, you'll get a new inspector because they switch every 6 months. And if the first one passed it, but the second one didn't, that's okay. I'll just go down there and fix what he wants. So mine are set up from the beginning to pass. And I only want to buy them that way.
I would say, As far as Section 8, like we love Section 8. One of the things I've seen that is a little bit easier than Section 8, and I know Marcus can kind of speak to this, is a program called Shelter Care Plus. And I think a couple other folks are here on that program also. And they do a Section 8 inspection also, but I've gone through that inspection, and that inspection is much easier than the supposed Section 8 inspection. As a matter of fact, I spent more time talking to the inspector than that person was actually inspecting the house. But to Mrs. Lindsay's point, he did do, making sure everything is grounded, making sure the water works, windows raised, doors open and shut, no locks on the screen doors, et cetera. Just making sure it's not like a piece of crap property. But I've gone through the Section 8 inspections where I really, really did a good job, in my opinion. And the Section 8 inspector said, I'll pass it, but you have to fix the lock on the gate. Didn't have anything to do with the house. There was a gate on the side that the lock was damaged, didn't work. So you could still open and close the gate, but that person wanted me to fix that switch and email him or send him a text that it was fixed. There are some additional hoops for Section 8 that I feel like folks have to jump through. And the other program, which is Shelter Care Plus, I'm not jumping through those hoops. Now, Shelter Care Plus, the folks that you get in those programs are a little bit more challenging. But one of the things I like, if you get a decent person, they paid the rent. It's usually about a week or so before the first of the month. So you always have your money on time. And sometimes when I'm doing my end of month calculations, I'll look and say, why didn't this person pay their rent? It's like, oh, because they paid it 2 weeks ago. So I do like that a lot.
And another thing too, Donnie, anybody that has Section 8 inspections or issues with them, a lot of times you don't have to fix it. You can just remove it. So like we've had screen door issues, they break the locks or whatever. We just take it off. That passes your Section 8. I do not add blinds to any of my properties that's going to be Section 8, because if I add them and they break the blinds, I have to replace those blinds. But they go in knowing that, hey, we didn't provide blinds, so we're not going to be responsible for them. So, and closet doors, if they break a closet door, guess what? My Section 8 person just lost a closet door because it's leaving with my worker or myself, and that will get you back where you need to be as far as standings with Section 8. So there are loopholes. I do recommend you spending time with the inspectors, but like Mr. Kita said, you're going to get a different sometimes. So you're going to have to just meet them there and just try to work it out. But back before the new guidelines, they could just, like Donnie said, just tell you to do something and they can come back and double check. Those days are gone now, as far as I've seen. So, I mean, it's got to be really, really minute for them to come back or give you credit for doing something that you tell them that you're going to do. However, if they do see you often enough and you do the things that you said you were promised, then a lot of times they will give you that leeway. But yeah, no blinds in Section 8. Sorry, but I gave you too many chances.
Well, I also don't put any stove and refrigerators in either.
And Chiquita, would you want to elaborate why you don't do that?
Well, because that means when it breaks, they're going to call me. And my goal is to get very little calls from the tenants. And I don't want the refrigerator to break and they say, I just bought $500 worth of groceries and they're thawed and you got to pay for it. Oh, it's Thanksgiving and my turkey is still frozen in the oven. And now you owe me a turkey dinner and a stove. And a lot of times the renters will come in and say, oh, there's no stove and refrigerator. And they'll be so hurt. And I'll say, you can go to 26th and Market and buy you a used one and it'll run another 20 years. Older refrigerators, they run forever. If it's there, and I got this from Mike Butler, if there's one out, so my very first tenants, I gifted to them that on their lease. It's now yours. When it breaks, it's yours. And if it's sitting there, it's a for sale sign on it. We got that from Mike Butler. Put a for sale sign on it. It's $50, a 30-day warranty. It's yours. You bought it. You take a picture of it sitting there that they bought it, and that's it. So my goal is not to get very little calls, You know, they even know how to get their own hair out of the sink, out of the tub. Don't call my husband, said the water's going down slow. You got gifted with that little long squiggly thing, and he showed you how to go down there and pull that hair up. So go do it yourself.
Hey, Hampton, could I jump in here for just a second?
Sure, Chris.
Just a commentary here, listening to all this. You know, earlier today, John and I were talking about the new housing ordinance, and I think we're going to nominate Chiquita to be the advocate and spokesperson for how to have a positive attitude about dealing with Section 8. I mean, Metro Louisville now has got a new ordinance. You know, Section 8 is a reality for landlords. If you didn't accept it before, you're going to, you know, you're forced to now. It's a protected class. And, you know, I just love her attitude, you know, a positive attitude of how she can accomplish within the rules of with the Section 8 program, as opposed to complaining about what's wrong with it and what's going to cause an inspection failure. She's talking about being proactive, getting ahead of the game, and she loves Section 8. I mean, that was just a great commentary on the exact attitude that somebody should have it being in the program, because there are a lot of unknowns. There are different inspectors. There's different opinions. One guy says one thing, somebody else says something else. Marcus offered some very legitimate solutions to dealing with it. So again, just, you know, all of us are going to be faced with this new ordinance. And I think we've got some great candidates here to teach the rest of our membership who may not be accepting Section 8. I can't read what John's saying there. What's that say, John?
All their names written down. I was thinking the same thing.
So anyway, I just want to jump in there and thank Chiquita for that awesome positive attitude, because that's really a lot of what it takes to participate in the program successfully. So anyway, sorry, thank you.
Welcome.
And for those of you who don't know, that's Chris McCarty. He's the KREIA president, which I'm sure many of you knew that. And it's great to have him on board and on the call tonight. And it's you know, a lot of people here willing to help each other. You've heard Marcus talk about the importance of mentorship and learning and helping each other. And KREIA really does that as a nonprofit organization. I see Rob Bergeron, you know, nodding his head there. Just a lot of great people that you can ask questions. You can, you know, take them out for a, you know, a bite to eat or a drink, or just call them up, and you may have a question of that or a scenario you haven't run into before, but there's somebody around here, somebody part of the group that has run into it before, maybe multiple times, and can guide you along or help you out of those type of situations. So, but we did have a couple questions in the chat box here. Let's see what else we had. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so we have over 100 people between this and the Facebook, and it seems like, I mean, there's a lot of valuable content. Is this something we could probably try to put together to run it back when we are able to get back together? We can do this again, but in person?
That's the plan. We got, you know, clear with the board and wait on the COVID restrictions, but the hope is that we'd be able to do a live version of this and ask the experts panel. Hopefully, if the YMCA will still have us, or another location, you know, in 2021 sometime. And in addition to the retreats and the other events we're planning, but
Perfect.
That was the question. That's good to know. There's over 100 people here, and probably a lot more will watch the recording over time. I should have brushed my hair, maybe put on a nicer outfit. They've got so many people watching this tonight. But there was a couple questions from the chat panel. One of them was for the panel here. If you've got an off-market property, or somebody that you want to approach someone about buying their off-market property, what do you think is the best way to do that? And he said phone, email, text. What are your thoughts on how do you find or approach off-market property owners?
I mean, what I've done in the past, I mean, I have business cards, and I have a 3-foot rule. If you're within 3 feet of me, I tell you I buy houses. I've also done a lot of driving for dollars and leaving notes on doors, and, you know, just putting your name out there. One of my mentees, his first deal, we were driving for dollars together, and his very first deal, I think he ran it by you guys, Hampton and Todd, for $1,500, he took over someone's mortgage and walked into a situation where he had $45,000 equity in it, that he's closing that deal as we speak. So it definitely works. You got to be proactive. You have to, spend some time in the field and talk to like-minded people and network. I mean, that's how you get to these properties. And if you don't have wholesalers as your friends, you're missing the boat on a lot of things. So, and another thing also, as my group continues to grow, we are actively looking to take over portfolios. If I can't do it myself or my immediate team, then we're willing to partner with other people. We're definitely looking for creative financing deals or whatever works. We have a lot of people looking to inject cash into me because of my track record. So that's always an option as well. So looking to take over someone else's properties is one thing. Tell your bankers. I tell all my bankers, if you guys have anybody that's failing with their rental portfolio, we have a track record at Red Door Investments, and we're looking to take over if we will.
I personally like to.
All right, George, I know you network a lot. How are you finding a lot of off-market properties? And
I network with a lot of people, but mainly every day I use land records. I search it for foreclosure, wheels. They all on there free. You can get all the foreclosures in Jefferson County free and 100% right. They all on land records every day. You can search them, find your area, see what you want. There's people's wheels on there, tell them how many houses they left and who they left them to. There's a lot of good stuff on the websites free on land records.
One of the things that I use is Deal Machine. So if I figure, mostly because I'm lazy on doing this aspect of it. So on Deal Machine, I can type in an address.
There's a lot of ways to approach. I'm sorry.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so if I'm driving for dollars, the Deal Machine app just basically allows you to pull up to an address and if that place looks vacant, et cetera, figure out who the owner is and send out a postcard. Now you do have to pay for the app. It's a monthly charge. I don't remember what it is right off, but that's one of the apps that I use as far as when I'm driving for dollars and trying to look into that. Wholesalers, I'm pretty much on most of all the wholesalers that probably who are doing business in Louisville right now. I would tell folks who are looking into wholesalers to do your research on the wholesalers before you try to do business with them. If that wholesaler is not friends with multiple other people in real estate, then that's probably not a person you want to deal with. I ran into an issue a couple weeks ago in the Russell neighborhood that someone was trying to wholesale a house. When I reached out to them and they had the house, in my opinion, about $20,000 overpriced. And so we were going back and forth on price. Come to find out, I drive by the house because I'm looking at other properties in the neighborhood. A friend of mine's, actually a friend of a friend, lived in that house. And so I got to go check out the house. And eventually I actually met the owner of the house. And the owner of the house did not know his house was being marketed like this. He thought he had a deal with someone else. So he thought he had a deal to sell the house at a particular price point, and that person he was selling the house to put it out there to wholesale the house at almost double that price. So I would tell folks who are not super savvy about that situation to watch the wholesalers that you're dealing with. They're not all honest.
The most of our deals are off-market deals. People usually call us. They've been word of mouth, friend of a friend, somebody that wanted us to take their property. And a lot of times I'm always calling Hampton and see what he has. So, I love wholesalers. I wholesale and I love wholesalers. They, as long as sometimes they're overpriced. Especially the new wholesalers that don't know how to price, they got it under contract too high. But I've gotten a lot of stuff from Hampton and friends and family and people and just word of mouth.
And networking, I think was mentioned earlier, is
Yeah.
probably one of the best. When you start looking at over time how many deals you've done, it's amazing how many are from the networking. And you should have multiple streams of leads. So whether you're doing mail, whether you're calling people, and I think that question that was earlier, whatever you think is going to be the best way to get in touch with that person, and in a way that is not provoking, in a way that is, you're just genuinely seeing, what their situation is, if you can help them, if it's something that you can do, and everyone's different. So I think any way you can do that. What other experiences have you guys had that has worked well for you?
Well, I also like using the board of realtors. When I see a house in my area, I can run a brief title, which is free, and tell whether people can accept what I want to pay for that house. A lot of agents got them listed too high, but they'll take less, but they don't say so. But when you look back and see, well, they only owe 20 and I want to give 30, then there's a good chance you may be to buy that house. So I look at a lot of MLS every day.
Looking at the MLS is how I found George's house.
Hey, that's not right.
We did have a question from Karen McKnight. Didn't know if any of the panel would like to explain wholesaling. I know we talked about wholesalers, but if somebody could explain the process of wholesaling for Karen, there may be some people that aren't familiar with that term out there.
Well, wholesaling is different to everybody. Me is like finding a house and then turn around and resell it without doing anything to it. And some people really go and pay for the house, and some people just write a contract and try to just sell the paper. But mainly they just want to flip a house real fast, and that's usually they want to sell it cheap and less than what it's worth.
And I tell you what, Hampton, I want to put a little plug in here just for folks who may not be familiar. So we're setting up the schedule for 2021, and hopefully at some point we'll get back together, but we will definitely be having our regular main meetings. And so I would encourage anyone who's considering, and I hope everyone on this call, if they're not already active, to give serious consideration. But the January meeting will be a really good place for you to kick things off, because it's all about learning the different areas you can invest and how you can do it. And so a lot of this will be explained. Those questions are great, but that's a good thing about KREIA is we will hit all of those main topics through this year. So the first one really is hit the ground rolling. How to get started covers pretty much a good overview of everything, helps you understand your financial situation, what you can potentially do. And then when you start looking, we'll then have wholesaling, which will be a main meeting and a Saturday session. The other will have a Saturday session as well. And then there's rehabbing. And so again, I'm not sure who all is out there who may not realize, but all of these main topics will be hitting every month, along with the fact that, again, I go back to Marcus, you start to network and get mentored, be a mentee here with someone on the call or someone, that's a club member. So just putting that in there for those of you, and just keep an eye on the website or talk to folks and we'll get that schedule out.
All right. Thank you so much, John. All right. For the panel there, any good stories about, helping a family out, or a tenant that you've helped, buy a home, any heartwarming stories or anything you've done? I know landlords got a lot, landlords, property managers get a lot of bad press, but I know we're a lot of good people. We should have a lot of good stories. Anybody have anything that they'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, I'll start. So we owned a house off of the street off of 22nd and Algonquin Parkway. It's on a street called Gregg Avenue. Really liked the house. It was sort of a Cape Cod kind of house. It was on a corner lot. Really solid, deep house. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, had a full basement. And I really enjoyed this house, and it bought us a really good rental rate until COVID. We had a new person move in right before COVID because the last tenants decided to buy a house and they bought it in Shively somewhere. This tenant, unfortunately, this is the only tenant who ever gave me any problems during the whole COVID situation. And so I had someone else approach me about buying that house for her to live in. And we've owned the house about 4 years or so. And I was like, all right, that sounds pretty good. So I knew this lady was going, her lease ended in, I believe, June. And she was already giving me the aspect that she was not going to move out. So I knew she wasn't going to move out peacefully. And I knew evictions were almost out of the question at that time. And so what I did was I got the lady come in, I treated her, I started putting that rumor out that we're selling the house, and this person who was going to buy the house ended up being my realtor. And so she would get in, she would be able to look at the house. She made a mistake one day because she had her dad come over to look at the house also when the tenant was still there. And so when it was, we're going through the bank and all of this stuff, as it was getting closer to the time to close on the house, I told the tenant who was currently there, who was already a couple weeks outside of her lease, that I would give her $1,000 to move. And I was going to make a significant amount of money on it, and as of making zero while she was there. So I told the tenant, I was like, I'll give you $1,000. And as a matter of fact, I'll give it to you in cash if you can move before that time period is up. And she didn't hear anything else except $1,000. So once we got her, she signed all the paperwork that she was supposed to sign, the attorney gave us. She moved out, and she was immaculate about cleaning the place. She had the refrigerator clean. Like, she did all of this extra stuff just to get that $1,000. And I feel bad because it kind of lied to her on one end, but the house, it wasn't like I was kicking her out to just go get more rental money. We were actually selling the house to someone who really wanted to have a home. If we had not finished that deal, I think it was like mid-July-ish or something like that. Had we not finished the deal, the person who purchased the house would not have been able to still qualify under the new COVID restrictions and stuff like that because of job. And she had been out a few times. She would not have been able to apply for that loan. So I feel like that was a heartwarming moment. And she was a friend of a friend of a friend. And she still, I still talk to her from time to time, and she says she just absolutely enjoys the house and loves it. Not sure where that renter went at, but she got a cool $1,000 out the deal. So I think everybody wins in that instance.
And I'd like to add something too. I do not have any feel-good stories, but I do know after every time I talk to Donnie, we're on the phone at least 45 minutes to an hour, and he is the best landlord in the world. He gives more than any other landlord that I know. So, hell, the first time he was telling me some stories, I started to leave my mortgage and move into one of his properties because they was living so good. So.
Yeah, he sounds pretty generous. I just one of the deals that Chiquita got for me. We only gave him $200, Donnie. The tenant was happy with $200 to move out. So, but I guess maybe a different type of property or different times. But
this person, I don't know where she moved at, but I guarantee you she probably lives with someone. Unfortunately, I don't think another landlord is gonna. So that $200, I don't think would have moved the needle with her.
Gotcha.
So that $1,000 just kind of came off the top of my head, and she was like, "Yes, I'll take that." I was like, "Great, I'm gonna make way more than that, and I just need you out." So
I think that was a pretty good deal, Donnie, because I know that when homes are in foreclosures and the mortgage companies come and want to offer you $5,000 to move out, they had the nerve to give you a W-9, a 1099 for it. So you was like cash.
yes.
Oh yeah, she wanted that. Now my tenants love me pretty well too. The majority of them on their anniversary, I'll send them $50 on their anniversary when they've been in. I have long-term tenants.
I have a tenant who pays about she's been there about 3 or 4 years, going on 4 years. Her rent's $900 a month. She's a cash paying tenant. And over the last, even before COVID, over the last 2, maybe 2.5 years, she consistently pays me a little bit over $1,100. And you know, it's for whatever reason, late fees, et cetera, but she's always late on her rent. And I don't want to kick her out because she's nice. She has a really nice family. And essentially I get my rent money, but I'm making about a little bit over $1,100 a month for this unit. And I was just like, if you want to pay me more, I'll take it. And she never complains about anything else. So that's one of the reasons she still lives there. Is that considered nice?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because you think if she moves, it's going to cost you more money.
Yeah.
And since she does pay, but yeah.
Although we did a house inspection, rental inspection, even though she's not on Section 8, we did do our yearly inspection, and it looked really good in their house. She's kept it up really well. So that has helped me think like, all right, she can stay as long as she wants, as long as I get the rent. And she's usually she runs about 2 weeks late from time to time. But she has a great job. Her husband works. They have an older child at the house. Child's in college. Like I don't understand why they're late all the time, but I'll accept it.
Yeah, I know Mike. I don't see Mike Butler on this call, but I know he's had tenants like that, and I think other landlords as well. And I've heard we've done this before, and you or others on here probably have as well, as offer that bi-weekly payment plan where they can pay the rent every 2 weeks. And if you do the math, they end up paying you 13 months worth rather than 12 months. You may want to adjust it to, or some tenants are just happy because they get paid every 2 weeks. They want to pay the rent every 2 weeks. So a lot of different ways you can get creative with this business. But any of you guys, speaking of get creative, have any ideas to maximize income or revenue or your return? There was a question about if any of you do Airbnbs. I've heard Kisha talk about selling them the appliances, which some of the appliances may have been sold several times if tenants leave them. I'm not sure, but either you guys have any money making or money saving tips for landlords and investors out there?
I would suggest not paying skilled laborers to do like handyman work. I mean, if you can find a handyman or get someone that's on your team that does that type of work. And another rule of thumb I usually do is if I see someone working on a house or a company working on the house, I immediately walk up to those guys and see if any of them work on the side and what their skill level is and what they're doing with their downtime. And if they have any recommendations, a lot of times they, may have an area what they're good at, and then they have a friend that does something else. So if they can have a record of performance, then I definitely take their number and try to get them employed. And we also use, because we do manage our own properties, we use Mike on call, the handyman, Andy on call, the handyman service. They're pretty inexpensive and, go the extra mile for us, and they're nationally known. So that would be another avenue. You don't want to get killed on the move outs of houses. So you definitely want to do your due diligence in getting the proper people to do the clean outs and repainting and everything else you want to do. It's, again, that's going to come from networking and experience and, speaking with like-minded individuals. You don't want to get burned on that if you're going to be a buy and hold person. And like Hampton said, Mike Butler's book, Landlording on Autopilot, I mean, that taught me a lot. Just reading that book is a quick, easy read. And Mike Butler does a free podcast, every Tuesday. So that's another thing that you should look into if you're going to be a buy and hold type of person.
Yeah, I agree with that. Every time I see somebody working on a house, I stop and get their card, but I don't want the card of the business. I always ask, do you have a card? Do you do work on the side? And I don't really want to I got a lot of properties, but I manage them, my husband, ourselves, because I don't like the idea of management companies getting my money first and then holding it. They get the money on the first, they're going to send it to me on the 15th. If there's something wrong, how do I know they're really shopping the service and they're going to change a faucet for $300? My husband could have done that a lot cheaper. The one they put in is the cheapest thing. Does it have a sprayer on it? Those type of things. So I think I got a control issue on the management companies. Not to say there aren't any good ones out there, but as long as I can manage them myself and keep that amount of control, and then I don't want them to run my tenants away either. Maybe they're not getting there in 24 or 48 hours. Or the tenants trying to call them and they can't get them. You know, that doesn't mean that I'm answering my phone 24/7. If they call me, they're gonna have to call me at a decent hour unless it's an emergency. And I'm gonna screen my calls. They're gonna have to leave me a message.
I'd like to keep a long time tenant, but the main thing is I want to keep a good bank account so when I do have a problem, I can write checks. As long as you can write checks, the problem is not as bad. But when you got a lot of rental property and you don't have enough money to pay the repair people, it can be a major problem.
And I have one more suggestion as far as if you manage your own properties. Like I said, we did deal with a property management company locally. It was a 3-month learning experience, but we fired them after 3 months. So what we've done is create a Google number that it goes on every lease. So that's the only number you'll have to reach out to. So once that voicemail is left, and you have to leave a voicemail, it does a couple of things. You'll get a record of the call. It texts you and emails you what happened. And for non-emergencies, we'll have somebody there to either return the call much later and then have the proper person on their way to do the job. And if they have a 911 emergency, you need to call 911 or the, ambulance or something, or the police, because a lot of times, it's just not going to be an emergency situation. And I definitely don't want anyone calling my phone at any time. So that's what we've done. We've set up a Google number that they can call into, leave a voicemail, and the proper person will be there to take care of their issue.
Yes, that Google Voice is nice and it's free. And you kind of screen your own calls. They tends to leave their name. You do get the email. We got questions a little earlier. Take me a little bit to get back to it. Let's see, where was it? Got a couple of them here. Let's see. Any advice, I guess, for when managing your own property? We covered some of these. The other ones were any podcasts, any books, any tools, any tips that you guys have found, very valuable for your business, or that have saved you a lot of time or money, and any resources you'd like to share with other members out there.
Just off the top of my hand, Mike Butler's Landlording on Autopilot was a great tool. One of the biggest things that I've learned was not letting the people know who the owner is. I mean, I think someone may have mentioned that earlier. I'm just a guy that, works for the company, the management company. So, let's talk bad about them. And then another thing too is the pedestal sinks in the bathrooms. I mean, it made so much sense after reading it, because most of your vanities in the bathrooms are tore up because they're just, throwing things in there. Not putting in garbage disposals. It's just a wealth of knowledge. It's an easy read. It's the only book that Harry Borders said he reads twice a year. So that tells you a lot right there.
Yeah, I agree with that book. That's why I don't buy a faucet for the sink that has a sprayer on it. It's the first thing they're gonna go out, they're gonna call me about. No. Yeah. Even security doors. That book is great, and I use a lot of tips from that. And I'm kind of old school. I'm not good with technology. I got to do the long way, work around to get things done. So I don't really have any fancy software. I do have Mike Butler software, but I haven't installed it yet.
Some of the, I read a couple podcasts, Black Married and Debt Free. It's a podcast of a couple. I think one of them still has a full-time job and the other one is part of the real estate investment. And so they talk about being debt free, et cetera, but they also own real estate. And so they do a lot of real estate around outside of, they live in California, I believe. So they do a lot of real estate deals outside of California. Another podcast is the Rental Income Podcast, and they have just similar to KREIA, just everyday individuals. An episode comes out every Tuesday, and so he interviews real estate investors around the country and just basically talk to them how they got started, what they're doing now, how they're making money, and they're basically what is their lane in the particular city that they're in. So Rental Income Podcast is a really good one. I believe it's Dan Lane, if I'm familiar with that. And of course, Bigger Pockets. I think everybody is pretty much on Bigger Pockets. I listen to Bigger Pockets pretty much several times a week, trying to figure out like what's going on. And I'll admit, don't think you can listen to everything on Bigger Pockets. Just kind of basically see something and take a lane and just try to stick with that lane. And I'm also on YouTube, like all the stuff that's on YouTube. If anything is on YouTube as far as like real estate, if it's on Instagram talking about real estate and investment properties, et cetera, I'm probably listening to it, especially if it's in small bite-sized forms, like 30, 40 minutes, I can deal with. 2 or 3 hours, I cannot deal with. And similar to what everybody else is talking about, we don't put in a lot of stuff. When I got into the real estate game, and not only you can ask my wife, you can ask like Marcus, he'll tell you, like one of the things I wanted to do was make the real estate as nice as I would want to live in it. That's like, if I would live in it, I know someone else would live in it. And it just took a little bit of time to figure out like, maybe they don't want gold chandelier ceilings if they're only paying $600 a month. So, I may need to scale back on that a little bit. But yeah, no gold chandelier ceilings, no swimming pools, no dishwashers, et cetera. But Mrs. Lindsay, I'm going to take you up on your offer. As of today, we do put appliances in. But we're going to probably try to scale back on that and see what happens.
All right. Wanted to take any questions from the audience. If you want to put them in the chat box. I was going to add another podcast I've liked, and we had a few questions about IRAs, which is another topic, or we could talk all night about that. But there's a podcast called SDI Radio, and it's all about self-directed investing. So you can learn about how to use IRAs, HSAs, ESAs, solo 401ks, and buy real estate. And they're usually 7 minutes or less. It's a lot of good information about that. I'm a real big fan of those, tax-free and tax-favored accounts for myself and kids and other members out there. You may have even grandkids if you're older that you could look at those type of accounts for them. Another one here was a good one. How does everyone structure your business? An LLC for property, separate LLC overall? Something I'm going to add here. Do you guys use land trusts? Is there anything you could share about the benefits of benefits, or what you think is a good way to organize your business for taxes or for asset protection purposes?
I think LLC is probably the best, but I use land trusts. Land trusts are good for the short term. I think once you get a big portfolio of properties, then you may want to go into the LLCs, because LLCs, you have to be documented and everything with the states, and that's what everybody really lacks. The courts and thing don't really like the land trust, so to speak, but they are the easiest one. If I'm just going to do one house, I'd probably do a land trust, and if I was going to do a bunch of them, I'd do LLCs. I didn't do a LLC. That's probably one of the mistakes I made, because I got everything in a land trust, but either one. But I do know the LLC is the best.
That's great. I got mine in both. And a few in my own name when I didn't know any better.
Don't never do that.
I know I'm slowly going to get them assigned over.
You can put them in my name.
You put some of yours in mine.
Well, that was one of the mistakes I made earlier in my career. Was my first, like I said, initially, I bought 4 properties out the gate on the same day, and they're all 30-year mortgages with a big bank, but they're all small balance houses. So it was really a great deal. However, we're just now turning around to get that out in my personal name. and the benefit to that, and I'm not sure if I told you guys everything's set up in an LLC currently. However, if you do hold on to houses and you get these properties into a business name, it doesn't show up on your credit. So that's the major part of this, So although I have 4 mortgages in my name, but we have, a rental portfolio that's under the business name, and it carries the business debt, and it saves your personal credit. And there's no reason to mix the two if you don't have to. And that's one of the things by not, just jumping in there head first and not, lining up all my ducks is one of the mistakes that I made. It hadn't hurt me bad enough or bad at all, but it's just a rookie mistake that everyone should avoid if they can.
And I think especially if you're going to do a partnership, it's best to have an LLC or land trust. You shouldn't have nothing in your personal name if you're going to do a partnership. That's one of the really dangerous.
And before doing anything, set up a meeting with one of the local attorneys. Harry Borders is excellent for that. He'll sit down with you for 45 minutes, not charge you. I spoke with Rochelle Bond. She'll do the same thing. Michelle Ron will do the same thing. You're going to have to tap into some resources and make sure that you get your planning lined up, because you're going to definitely need some help before you walk into these banks or these hard money lenders. You're going to have everything lined up. So definitely speak with someone in the game first and try to put your best foot forward.
The first couple properties we purchased back in 2015, we were so gung-ho, didn't know anything about an LLC. We purchased them in our personal names. And, we didn't have a lot of debt. We technically don't have a lot of debt now, but we learned the hard way when we started purchasing in our LLCs. And when we took those properties to transfer them to the business name, our credit dropped. So the credit score, it almost dropped like close to 80 points. It recovered pretty fast, but it dropped close to 80 points. And I'm still sort of credit sensitive. Don't tell Dave Ramsey that. But when I look at my credit score, like I know that I can go into any of the banks and do what I need to do and get what I need to get. But there was a time when we did those transfers, when that credit score dropped, I was like, all right, let me give it a couple months, because one thing I don't want to hear from one of these local banks is no. And so we learned that lesson hard.
I know we're not, attorneys on here, so maybe tell people to refer to that disclaimer. You maybe consult your attorneys or your CPA regarding tax-wise, if it's LLC versus S corp or land trust or within an IRA. You can set up your business different ways. It's just a question that we got from the crowd here. Another one was good banks to work with. There's lots of KREIA sponsors, lots of banks that can do loans for you. It's someone's asking, what does the process look like to transfer a property out of your personal name to an LLC, and do you have to refinance? So have you guys dealt with that before?
It shouldn't be a refinance, but they should get their attorney to do it for them to make sure it's transferred right. Because you can take a house with a mortgage on it and put it into a LLC or a land trust, but just be sure your attorney does it for you.
Yeah, that's correct. We did 3 of them, and they all had small mortgages on them. We didn't have to. It was just simple paperwork, and we did not have to do anything else. Didn't have to refire anything else. No.
Okay, just a question from the crowd there. Let's see. We'll keep the questions coming, everybody. You can type them in the chat box. There's questions about, do you get more rental income on Section A? I know we kind of covered that, but you guys say it depends on the area of town or the number of bedrooms, or what you think you get better rental rates from Section 810s versus someone that privately pays their rent on their own?
I think so. Yes. Depending on the part of town and how many bedrooms. That's my question. That's my answer.
Yeah, I know so too. I feel more comfortable if I'm targeting a Section 8 person who is 100%. Giving them the fair market rents is just a wonderful tool. And you definitely want to look at that too when you're, giving your rent request out, because $1,400 for a 4-bedroom is just going to be tough for a lot of people. So you definitely you definitely get more if you're dealing with Section 8, in my opinion, but we mostly rent to Section 8, so we're a fan.
And don't forget this, it's guaranteed. It's mostly guaranteed. Even if you lose your job, if you're paying, let's say the rent is $800 and that person is paying a $400 portion, and let's say Section 8 pays that $400 portion in January, and that person, once they go into the Section 8 to reevaluate because they lost their job for whatever reason, Section 8 will backdate and pay you that the money that person should have paid you based on the new payment, not payment standards, but what they're worth, what they can qualify for now. So Section 8 is almost essentially guaranteed money, and I'll accept that.
And I like the fact that there's consequences. If they tear your property up totally, if they don't pay their part, if they lay in your property and the water's off for 3 months and the lights off for 3 months, they'll get put off Section 8. Then they'll have to go back to the end of the waiting list. So there's consequences for them. That's the part that I like also.
And to my understanding, if they do, like she said, if they don't, I think that you have to file a judgment against them first. And once that judgment, if it turns into a default judgment and they do not pay or do not answer this judgment, then they are kicked out of the Section 8 program and then fall to the back of the line. So that is a thing. It kind of holds both people accountable. So, and another thing too, if they're not in compliance with your rules, when it's time for them to redo their lease, they can't move unless they're completely compliant. So that's another tool that you can have. That's a whole nother year of payments if they don't make good.
In 6 months, they send you a paper in 6 months that says, ask the tenant, are you going to stay? Are you going to leave? So you'll know in advance if your tenant's going to leave. You'll have 6 months notice. Or maybe you can say, I'm not going to renew the lease. So you have a choice also.
They also have a good program on Section 8 where you can turn that renter into a homeowner and they won't be paying anything extra, and you can get market value for your property, which is good.
I just sold one of my houses to a Section 8 person. A Section 8 program helped them, and I'm not sure if it's KPI or someone helped them with the down payment assistance. So and I did have one of my Section 8 renters move out years ago, and Section 8 purchased their house. So that is a thing.
And occasionally there are those down payment assistance or matching grants available that roll out some. Haven't seen one lately, but they've been out there before. So to help people with home ownership. There's a question in the chat about, do any of you all have any whole house Airbnbs?
I do not.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'll want to cover that question another session. And the other question was, what's a CUP? That's a conditional use permit. So again, that's something to do with Airbnb that's now required in the city of Louisville. Other cities, other states may have requirements, so we'll go over that at another time. Let's see. Look at other questions here. All right. Any other helpful hints, tips, tricks of the trade that you'd like to share that you think would be beneficial for either grizzled veterans or new investors just want to get started?
I would say one of the main thing is try to attend as many subgroups that we have, like lots. Ed Gibson have one. Nan Upton, I see her name. She started our subgroups years and years ago, and you should attend as many of those as you possibly can.
Well, let's just go around, have the speakers come, maybe give a couple their final thoughts, words of advice or wisdom for everybody, and then we'll probably call it a night unless we got any more questions that come in. And I greatly appreciate everybody's time. We'll do a final thank you and information at the end. But who'd like to go first? Maybe kind of sum things up, and anything they'd like to say to the group before we call it a night.
I would just like to say do as much networking and meet as many people in the business as you can.
I'd like to thank you all for inviting me. I want to say that real estate is good in bad times and good times, as long as you know what you're doing. I think real estate is the safest and the fastest way to wealth. And every woman needs to own at least one door that she doesn't own, that she doesn't owe any money on. It's hers. Nobody can ever take it away from them.
And I would like to say, same thing. Thank you guys for having this and putting on this forum and creating a space where, everyone was invited. There was no fee at all. So there's no more excuses, there's definitely people in your circle that's probably talking about it. There's definitely people in your circle who's probably doing it. There's definitely people in your circle that's willing to help you out. So just reach out, make sure your numbers are right, make sure that you have things in order before you go to the likes of the hard money lenders. Speak with your attorney if you can. Get an attorney if you don't have one, because you definitely don't want to be in a situation where you're going to hurt yourself or hurt someone else by using someone else's money, by not doing your due diligence. So get with as many people that, will listen and talk to them, and get a game plan together and jump out there.
I would say anybody who is interested in real estate that is not currently in real estate, you're already on the right path. You can read all the books, all the financial books, et cetera, and everybody is going to tell you, every multimillionaire, billionaire, et cetera, has some real estate portfolio. So if we know real estate is a way that the wealthy make their money and average everyday individuals make money, there are many, I see several people on the Zoom call that are unemployed and unemployable because of real estate, then you're already on the right path. Get with an organization like KREIA, get with some of us on this Zoom call, as other folks have said, have lunch, coffee, come out to the meetings. This has been a crazy year because we have not had those meetings. So it's going to be hopefully fun next spring or next year when we start having those meetings again. And, I would say definitely, to everyone else's point, to come out and network as much as possible.
Yes, and KREIA puts on a lot of those great events, to network and to meet and mingle and, meet contractors, meet other investors, learn from people that have been there and done that. So it's been great for my business. I'm very fortunate to be a member, be elected to the board, and I've learned so much from other members, and it's such a good culture. Everybody's giving back and helping each other, and everybody's it's a abundance mentality, and a lot of great people, a lot of very wise and experienced people that are willing to share their knowledge with anybody. Just ask. So thanks you all for attending tonight. Real good turnout. If you got any questions, feel free to stick around for a little bit. We may just kind of mingle and hang out for a little bit. Mike Fallett, been also told here, is actually Lending is the platinum sponsor of KREIA during a lot of our normal meetings. They'll have a banner. We'll get everybody to kind of do their sponsor pitches. Don't really get to do that with the Zoom call format, but they're the big platinum sponsor of KREIA. And so we want to thank him. I didn't see him here tonight, but him and Wendy Kays at Lending, they do a lot for KREIA. So we certainly want to thank them. If you're not a member of KREIA, it's easy to join. You can just go to KREIA.com. That's KREIA.com. And you can be part of a lot of these, the happy hours, the game nights, the lunch and learns, the lots programs, the main meetings, the KREIA retreat, and there's other events, Saturday workshops. So you can see upcoming events on the website. I'm available if you want to shoot me an email or phone call about benefits of KREIA. If you've got any questions for me, I'm happy to help, as well as I'm sure a lot of the speakers are. John Jones, the KREIA president, as well. Chris McCarty is. But so thank you all for your time tonight. Hope to see you on the upcoming Zoom calls. The main meeting, again, 4th Thursday of every month. And thanks again to the speakers so much. Donnie, Chiquita, Kisha, Marcus. It's in George, of course. It's thank you for imparting the wisdom and taking your time out of your busy schedule to help other KREIA members. And I know a lot of people learned a lot of good stuff tonight. And hopefully we'll do something like this soon, hopefully in person. But if not, we'll get some different speakers, different topics maybe, and try to continue this. Good night, everybody, and thanks for attending.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a good one.